Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I was tightening a clamp on the charge port panel when I heard him before I saw him. That voice. Loud, proud, always just a little too much. There she is, my grease girl! I stood up straight. My name is Emma Blake. I'm 36. I live in Tempe, Arizona. And I'm the Senior Vehicle Integration Specialist. Technically, the Director of Systems Integration for the Nexus prototype, the most advanced electric vehicle my company's ever built. Today was open house at the Proving Ground. Investors, media, suppliers, all here to see what we've been quietly building for the past 3 years. The hangar was spotless. The air smelled like ozone and coffee. And my dad, Dave, was stomping around like he owned the place. He was retired now, 35 years on the line at a GM plant in Detroit, blue-collar legend in his own head. Since he flew in this morning, he hadn't stopped reminding everyone about it. We used to weld by hand, he told some poor junior engineer earlier. Now you kids just press buttons. Now he was barreling toward me, dragging 2 investors and the press coordinator behind him like it was a damn tour group. This is my daughter, he boomed. She's one of the mechanics, real hands-on. I clenched my jaw. Before I could correct him, he yanked me by the elbow and pointed straight at the prototype, the matte black beast resting dead center under the skylight. Get in there, Em, he barked, pushing me toward it. Show him your stuff. She loves getting dirty. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? My stomach twisted. I glanced at the group, 2 VC partners from Chicago, one of the R&D directors, and our lead comms officer. Their faces were polite but confused. Dad, I muttered low. Let go. But he was already grabbing my arm again, pulling me closer for a photo op he never asked for. Let's show him what a proud dad looks like, huh? He said with that grin he saves for other people. As he pulled me in, my lanyard swung forward. I usually keep my badge tucked under my jacket to avoid small talk. Today, it flipped clean into the light. A gold clearance tag, 2 red bands. Director, Systems Integration. The comms officer went stiff. One of the VCs blinked. And then I heard the words that cracked the room in half. This is our lead on Project Nexus, said our chief engineer, loud and clear. Emma Blake. The silence hit like a tire blowout. My dad's hand dropped off my shoulder. His grin drained out of his face so fast it left him standing there like a mannequin. I stepped back and straightened my jacket. No smile, no words. Just stared ahead as the weight shifted in the room. Just a few hours earlier, I'd been walking backward through the main entrance lobby, pointing out the traction control display to my dad and mom as they arrived. He didn't hear a word of it. This whole place smells like a damn hospital, he said, looking up at the skylights like he might spot asbestos. 2 junior engineers passed us. One of them nodded at me. My dad flagged him down immediately. Hey, this is my daughter Emma, he said, throwing an arm around my shoulder before I could dodge it. She's one of your top mechanics, right? I started to correct him. Actually, real hands-on, he cut me off. She was always elbow deep in her Tonka trucks, weren't ya? Then he laughed like that was charming. I glanced at the engineer, who gave a confused smile and just kept walking. I stepped away from my dad's grip and pulled my badge back inside my jacket. Dad, stop saying that. I'm not a mechanic. He shrugged. Same difference. You work on cars, right? I bit the inside of my cheek. My mom was already asking if there'd be food. By the time we hit the VIP walkway over the test track, the company's founder, Michael Trenton himself, was walking alongside us. I had maybe 15 seconds of his attention before my dad wrecked it. So we're still on for a test of the dynamic vectoring at high load? I asked him, holding his interest. Then from behind me, hey Mike, where do we get the free t-shirts? My wife's looking for swag. Trenton blinked. I looked down at my feet. He gave me a tight smile and kept walking. Later, at lunch, we took a long table outside near the solar lot. It was supposed to be informal, a mix of a few visiting families, some lower-level techs, and their kids. I was half eating, half answering questions about the LiDAR integration on our prototype. That's when my dad started up again. Jeff just got promoted, he announced loud enough to grab attention. Assistant district manager, they've got him running the whole floor. Someone asked what kind of store. Appliances, he said proudly. He's real management material, not like Emma. She tightens bolts for a living. He laughed again, though she does it in a fancy building. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. A few of the interns looked around, unsure if that was a joke or something they were supposed to laugh at. I smiled, tight, practiced, said nothing. My mom leaned in and asked if the water was sparkling or just flat. You know, he went on. When she was a kid, she could take apart a lawnmower, but books, not her thing. I counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. I'd let it slide again. You want a burger, Dad? I asked calmly. I'll go grab one for you. Nah, I'm good, he said, missing the point. But if there's any more of those cookies, your mom wants one. I stood, grabbed a paper plate, and walked off before I said something I'd regret. Halfway to the food tent, one of the comms interns caught up to me. She was maybe 25, nervous energy, always second-guessing herself. Emma, she said quietly, was that your dad? I gave her a nod. She hesitated. He, doesn't know what you do here, does he? I gave the smallest smile I could manage. Nope, I said. And he never asked. I didn't need the intern to say it. I'd already lived through worse. Last Thanksgiving was the final straw, even if I didn't say it out loud at the time. We were all packed into my parents' place in Glendale, Arizona. Folding chairs around the dining room table, the usual smell of green bean casserole and overcooked turkey. Jeff showed up late wearing a blazer and that fake humility he uses when he wants applause. My dad stood up before dessert and cleared his throat like he was addressing Congress. Before we dig into pie, he said, raising his wine glass, I want to recognize someone at this table who's been absolutely killing it. He looked straight at Jeff. I already knew where this was going. This kid, he said, clapping Jeff on the back, just got promoted to assistant district manager, whole floor under his command now. Payroll, hiring, even the scheduling. That's real responsibility, not just clocking in and out. There were a few claps. My mom beamed. Jeff gave a bashful shrug and said something about just doing his best, like it wasn't the same dead-end store he's worked at since he was 20. I waited until things quieted down, then cleared my throat. Well, actually, I said, keeping my voice even, I got tapped to lead the next-gen vehicle architecture shift at my firm. I'll be directing cross-system integration for, well, as long as you're happy getting your hands dirty, my dad cut in, already pouring himself another drink. Good for you. I stared at him. My mom jumped in with her chipper voice. A steady job with no pressure. That's a blessing these days. No pressure, I repeated. Right. Jeff was on his phone by then, already checking fantasy football. I looked around the table. A couple cousins were whispering. My aunt reached for more gravy. And to show how proud we are, my dad added, totally ignoring me, we helped Jeff put a down payment on that new SUV, real sharp. Gotta show up to work looking like a boss. He needed a co-signer, my mom said. Like that was just a natural thing to do. My fork hit my plate harder than I meant it to. I hadn't asked them for help since I was 19. Paid off my student loans on my own, bought my car in cash, got every certification, every promotion, every training session funded through work or from my own damn savings. And they never even asked if I needed support, not once. Thanks for dinner, I said, standing up. I'll get started on cleanup. No need, my mom said, but didn't move. I gathered the plates, scraped half-eaten food into the bin, ran the faucet loud so I wouldn't have to hear any more half-hearted compliments. Behind me, I heard Jeff talking about the surround sound system in his new place. My dad asked if he'd picked out a grill yet. My mom offered to go halfsies on one for Christmas. No one said a word about my promotion. I dried the last plate, stacked it on the counter, and stood there staring at the steam coming off the dishwater. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from the effort it took not to say what I really thought. That they saw Jeff as the success story because his job looked familiar. That my work, because it didn't have a storefront or a walk-in manager's office, somehow didn't count. I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and walked past the living room without a word. Jeff was already unboxing his new Bluetooth speaker for everyone to admire. Back at work, I wasn't Emma Blake, daughter of Dave, sister of Jeff. I was Falcon. It started as a nickname in the control room. I caught a telemetry drift on an older platform during an after-hours run and radioed in before the algorithm even flagged it. Eyes like a hawk, one of the guys said. More like a falcon, someone else corrected. It stuck. It followed me into every code review, every pressure curve debrief, every high-speed test. Nobody used it as a joke. Not around here. When things went sideways, traction inconsistencies, battery inconsistencies, pressure drops under load, the call went out. Bring in Falcon. 5 successful launches, 0 recall triggers. I'd flagged 3 major system flaws before they cost us a single dollar. Last year, I saved the company about $6 million just by catching a heat expansion conflict before it hit live track testing. But one meeting stayed with me more than any of that. It was maybe 4 months before the open house. Closed session. Just 8 of us in a steel-walled room. Screens pulled up with test telemetry from a new cooling loop system. Everyone was quiet. Something looked off. Numbers weren't lining up under thermal strain at high G loads. I scrolled through the data again. Pressure curve looked clean at first, but not over time. It flattened, then dipped. Too soon. That meant we were building heat faster than we were displacing it. One hard turn at speed, and that entire run could have buckled the housing. I leaned forward, tapped the display. There, I said. System 3B. Loops collapsing under sustained input. Doesn't look like it from above, but I ran it twice through the backup load model. Patel, our head of R&D, crossed his arms. Your call, Falcon. Shut it down? I didn't hesitate. Shut it down, I said. He nodded once. That was it. No challenge. No back and forth. That kind of trust wasn't handed out lightly. You earned it with blood, time, and flawless instinct. I walked out of that meeting with every senior lead knowing the new design wouldn't move forward unless I said it could. And yet back home, I wasn't even allowed to pick the Thanksgiving movie. Every time I visited, Jeff got the remote. I'd ask to watch something, didn't matter what. And my dad would say, "Come on, let your brother pick. You don't even like movies?" Right. I just didn't like their movies, or their stories, or their constant need to make me smaller to keep their version of the world intact. At work, I was trusted with lives, trusted with millions, trusted to say shut it down and have the room stop breathing. At home, I brought pie and took the end seat so I wouldn't be in the way. I could trace all of it back to a single sentence. I was 20, still living at home, 1 foot in community college, working nights at a tire shop, and waiting on the one thing that didn't feel like a long shot: the Elite Vehicle Systems Training Program in Chicago. Only 30 people got in every year. I applied on a dare, spent weeks reworking my essay, double-checked the reference letters, sent it off and told no one. When the envelope came, I knew instantly. Thick, real paper, logo stamped dead center. I didn't even take off my boots. I ran straight into the living room, holding it up like a trophy. "Dad," I said, breathless. I got in. He didn't look up, just kept flipping channels like he was checking stock prices. Got into what? The training program, the one I told you about. Chicago, Vehicle Systems Integration. He finally glanced my way, then back at the screen. "You're a hands-on girl, not a brainiac," he said. "Don't get ideas." That was it. No smile, no good job, no questions. Just that flat sentence, like he was flicking lint off his shirt. I stood there, letter still in my hand, and felt the whole world narrow. I didn't argue, didn't defend it, just nodded, walked upstairs, and closed my door. That moment split something clean in two. From then on, I stopped offering him anything real. Didn't show him my first certification, didn't tell him when I got my bachelor's. When I earned the first promotion at 25, he found out from my mom and still called it another step up the ladder for the pit crew. He didn't get updates because I stopped giving them. Every time I hit a new milestone, I put it behind a wall. No texts, no calls. I celebrated with my team, my mentors, my own damn self. And when I visited home, I played small, shrugged when he asked how work was going, said, same old, even when it wasn't. It wasn't just that he didn't understand, it was that he didn't want to. The more I succeeded, the more defensive he got. Like my progress made his life choices smaller. Like I was stepping out of the line we were all supposed to stay in. Don't get ideas. That line echoed every time I found myself doing the thing he swore I wasn't built for. Managing systems, calling shots, leading teams. I got ideas. I got promotions. I got power. And I kept him locked out of it. Not because I hated him, not even out of revenge, because I had to. Because I knew if I let him too close, he'd try to drag it down, make it about grease and bolts and dirt under the nails, try to shrink it to something he could wrap his head around. I wasn't about to let that happen. Not again. So when he grabbed my arm in front of investors, called me his grease girl, and tried to turn me into a damn photo op, I didn't lose it. I went cold. Tactical. As soon as the crowd shifted to another part of the hangar, I peeled off and found Marissa. Head of comms, clipboard always in hand, sharp enough to see through most people. Quick ask, I said. Can we set up a special walkthrough for one of the civilian guests? Retired from a manufacturing background, came in from Detroit. She raised an eyebrow. Media facing? No, I said. Just an internal morale thing. Engagement angle. He worked the floor at GM for 30 years. Thought it'd be nice. She thought for a second, then nodded. Yeah. Actually, I like that. Could play well with the press blurbs. Who? I didn't blink. My father. She smiled. Done. I'll add him to the pre-demo walk-in list. We'll cue him right before the prototype reveal. Perfect. I didn't say a word to my family. Let my dad keep walking around like he was the guest of honor. Let him think the firm finally recognized his years of real work. He bought into it instantly. That night, I overheard him on the hotel phone telling my brother to bring the good camera, said he'd be front and center for the big reveal, and wanted some photos for the retirement album. My mom was already laying out outfits. I said nothing, just kept sipping my water, nodding like I was happy for him. He came down to breakfast the next morning with a tucked-in polo and that same old swagger. Told some junior engineers in the lobby, stick close today, might learn something from the old school. I kept my badge flipped around and my jacket zipped. He pointed at the prototype as we passed it again on the way into the main hangar. Now that's something, he said. They ever let you get behind the wheel? I didn't answer. Just kept walking. He thought this was his spotlight, his big day. He didn't know I had planned every inch of it, not out of spite, not even to embarrass him. This was about precision, about putting reality in front of him so sharp he couldn't round the edges. I'd spent years playing small to make him comfortable, years pretending his view of me didn't matter, when it always did, because I kept hoping, even quietly, he'd eventually see me for who I really was. But that day made it clear, he never would, not unless I made it undeniable. So I gave him a front row seat, let him wear the proud smile, let him drag my brother and mom in for pictures, let them all think he was being honored. Right up until the moment the title under my name couldn't be ignored anymore. We stepped into the hangar right on schedule. The prototype sat dead center under the overhead spots, a matte silver bullet with cobalt accents, every curve whispering torque and control. I'd walked this floor 100 times, but this time I stayed behind the crowd. My father led the way like he owned the place, arms wide, head on a swivel. My mom trailed him, phone already recording. Jeff looked bored. Now that's a machine, my dad said, pointing like he'd helped build it. Bet she moves. A few junior staffers stood near the back wall. Marissa waved to me from her post at the edge of the demo team. The CEO had just joined the circle. Tall, sharp suit, quiet presence. He was deep in conversation with one of the VCs. That's when my dad struck. He walked up to the car, patted the hood twice like it was a prize horse, then turned to the group with a grin. Let's get Emma in the hot seat for once, he bellowed, laughing. Before I could react, he clapped a hand on my back and gave me a shove. Come on, show him you know your way around more than a wrench. I stumbled forward, caught myself on the roll bar. My hand gripped it tighter than it needed to. I could feel the blood rush to my face, not from embarrassment, from restraint. My badge swung out from my jacket collar, loose from the earlier push, red bands, gold trim, clearance tag exposed. It flipped forward and held there, catching the overhead light perfectly. The CEO, mid-sentence, stopped talking. His head turned, then his whole body. Director Blake, he said clearly, loud enough for the group to hear. Silence spread fast. Even the text stopped moving. I stood upright, adjusted my jacket, but left the badge hanging. My father blinked like he hadn't heard right. The CEO stepped forward slightly, looking at my badge, then back at my face. Didn't realize you were leading this group, he added, nodding slowly. Now all eyes were on me. My dad's mouth opened, then closed. Director? He repeated, uncertain. Marissa stepped up beside me. Director of Systems Integration, lead on project NEXIS. The VC next to her raised an eyebrow. Wait, you're the one they call Falcon? I nodded once. My dad looked like someone had unplugged him. She's been running all the high-speed coordination tests, Marissa went on. Diagnostics, telemetry filtering, emergency overrides, all her protocols. Jeff took a step back. My mom stopped filming. Is this a joke? My dad said, quieter now, not laughing anymore. No joke, said the CEO. She's the reason this car isn't scrap metal right now. I didn't say anything, just stepped fully into the light, letting the title do what years of explanations never could. My dad looked down at the badge like it was written in another language. Someone from the R&D team called out, "Falcon, we ready for the load check?" I gave a small nod. "Green across all bands." That sealed it. The mood shifted. I wasn't someone's daughter anymore. I was the one calling the shot. My father stood frozen, jaw tight, still holding on to whatever story he thought he was part of. The CEO took one long look at my badge, then turned to the entire group. "This," he said clear and firm, "is the woman who signs off on every high-speed run we've ever cleared." A couple heads turned. More eyes locked onto me. He stepped closer. "Director Emma Blake. She's the reason this vehicle made it past stage 3. She's the one who flagged the steering calibration failure that would have cost lives." The air in the hangar went still. You could hear a vent humming somewhere above us. That and the sharp click of my father's jaw clenching. "She doesn't just work on the car," the CEO continued, now looking straight at my dad. "She leads the people who design it." My dad didn't speak. His eyes darted between me and the prototype, like he couldn't figure out which one betrayed him harder. His mouth opened again. Nothing came out. My mom had the decency to flush red and put her phone away. Jeff shifted back behind a couple engineers, trying to blend in like background noise. The CEO looked around once more. "We take pride in our work here, and we take even more pride in the people who make it happen. Director Blake is one of the best we've ever had." He didn't say it with a smile. He said it like a fact carved in steel. A few people clapped, quiet, unsure at first, then louder. More joined in. Marissa caught my eye and gave a tight nod. I didn't smile, didn't move, just stood there, letting the weight of it land where it needed to. My dad still hadn't said a word. He looked smaller now, like a man caught in the wrong uniform at the wrong job site. I saw it in his face. He didn't understand how the spotlight had shifted off him and wasn't coming back. My mom nudged him. He didn't move. Jeff mumbled something like, "We should go." They didn't storm out. No outburst, no denial. They just walked, past the R&D board, past the charging bay, past the interns who were now whispering about me, not Jeff. No one stopped them, and I didn't follow. I watched them disappear through the side doors. No cameras, no audience, no false pride to carry. The moment they were gone, I exhaled. The crowd turned back toward the prototype. The engineers regrouped. Someone called out a systems check. We had work to do? I stepped around the passenger side and scanned the interface on my tablet. "Torque vectoring still clean?" asked one of the tech leads. "Perfect," I said. He grinned. "Good. Wouldn't want to embarrass the boss in front of the investors." I met his eyes. "You'd need a lot more than that to embarrass me." That got a few laughs, but underneath it, something settled. For the first time, my title didn't feel like armor. It felt like truth. The hangar was clearing out when she approached me, probably early 20s, new badge, nervous hands. "I had no idea," she said, voice soft. "I thought you were just, like, helping out." I glanced down at my jacket, badge still swinging slightly. I smiled. "That's the point. I didn't need anyone to know unless it mattered." She blinked like that hadn't even occurred to her. Then she nodded twice and walked off without saying anything else. That moment stuck with me more than the applause, more than the CEO's speech, because she wasn't the only one. Over the next few weeks, I started getting quiet messages from interns, newer engineers, even admin staff. People who saw what I did and finally realized someone like them could do it too. And then came the real shift. 3 months after the demo, I was called into a late afternoon boardroom meeting. No preamble, just a clean line of execs and one open chair. The head of R&D stood up. "We're restructuring. Advanced Programs needs direction," he said. "We want you to take it." I stared at him. "You're offering me VP?" He nodded. "It's yours if you want it." I took the job. That meant new hires, new projects, and a wider net to cast. So I started pulling up the names I remembered. Interns with good instincts, junior techs who'd spoken up with real ideas, women who'd been buried under louder voices. I carved out space for them the way nobody had done for me. At our next quarterly all-staff event, I stood at the podium as the keynote. I was halfway through a slide deck on cross-platform AI integration when I spotted him in the back of the room. My dad. Khakis polo, same look like he was trying to calculate how something worked without the manual. He hadn't RSVP'd, just showed up. I finished my talk without missing a beat. When it ended, people clapped. A few came up to ask questions. He tried to edge into the group. "She's always been sharp," he said too loudly. "Taught her everything about real work with my own hands." Nobody responded. One of the engineers asked me if I had time to review a sensor validation report. I said yes, shook a few hands, and moved on. My dad just stood there, smile faltering, waiting for a moment that never came. I didn't shut him down, didn't need to, because this time, no one handed him a microphone. No one made space for him to speak over me. He wasn't the center anymore. He was just another guy in the back of the room. And me? I wasn't looking for payback. I had something better. I had respect. About a year after the demo, we were packed into a booth at some dusty roadside bar just outside the test loop in Mesa. Still in work boots, jackets tied around chairs, laptops open but ignored. We'd just wrapped a 2-week series of torque stress tests, and the system held. No warnings, no overrides. Clean green run across the board. Someone was breaking down the brake fade numbers. Someone else was mocking the cafeteria's meatloaf sandwich, which was neither meatloaf nor a sandwich. Laughter rolled over the table like it belonged there. I had a glass of something sharp in one hand, boots kicked up on the seat next to me. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw his name. Just a text. "Saw your name in a tech blog. Congrats. We're proud of you." I stared at it for a second. No reaction, no rush of anger, no swell of bitterness. Just space, distance, like reading a message from a stranger who thought they still knew me. I didn't reply, didn't delete it either. I tapped archive, filed it away like an old receipt. Proof of something, sure, but not something I needed to carry around. Then I slid my phone face down and looked around the table. The team was still bickering over torque curves. Someone was drawing a brake map on a napkin with a Sharpie. Another raised their glass without looking and said, "To Falcon." I raised mine too. Not as a symbol, not as some moment of triumph. Just because I was exactly where I belonged. No mask, no hiding, no shrinking. Seen, respected. Me.